Hi. Okay. So yes, like I said, I'm Leila Thomason, love stylist and marriage alchemist. And today I wanted to talk about my recovery and tell you a little bit more about my first marriage and the toxic relationship that I recovered from and how I did that because we had a question. Hi, Amy. Oh, I'm so glad. Great. Thank you so much. So we had a question about how to forgive the people around you and sort of who you expected to be your support network when you're in a bad relationship, when you're recovering, when you finally wake up and understand your eyes are open to um, what you've been exposed to, what you've been allowing into your life. And how everyone around you seemed to just stay silent and, be complicit and actually enabling that toxic, bad relationship. And so this does hit home for me, really, truly does. I was married at 26, but I think actually 24 maybe. And I had my first daughter when I was 26, and my first husband, ex-husband, is 20 years older than me. Completely lied at the beginning of the relationship. Just a horrible situation and dynamic between us was that he would violate boundaries and be untruthful, be dishonest. He was cheating on his wife when I met him, and then eventually the marriage ended because he cheated on me. Who would have thought, right? And there were people around me that would say things in sort of a subtle way, or like implying or insinuating, yeah, he'll probably cheat on you because he cheated when you met him. And I didn't want to believe any of it, right? I wanted to prove them wrong. If you've ever seen the movie He's Just Not That Into You, where the woman keeps having these situations where like the guy won't contact her, won't pursue her, goes silent and lies or whatever that is happening when she's dating these men, and she'll hear from friends, oh, I know this woman that this happened to her, and then 10 years later they're happy and they have kids and everything's fine, and so she keeps wanting to believe that she's going to be the exception to the rule. And believe me, I do believe in being exceptional, and that things can work out that are unconventional and they don't seem like the usual advice. So don't get me wrong, that's not my issue. But when you consistently hold on to a belief that things are going to be 180 degrees different than they appear to be, without any extraordinary measures, without you really having extraordinary self-knowledge, without you taking any extraordinary steps to make them different, then no, they're not going to be different. They're going to go exactly the way that everyone predicts because you haven't done anything different than what got you into that situation, right? So, but what I wanted to say, because what the question was about, is how to forgive the people, how to let go of the anger when you feel you had no control over the situation. You're hearing, take responsibility, but honestly, you didn't know any better back then. Wish someone would have helped you, especially people in marriage counseling and people you seek help from. So I totally, totally sympathize. I've completely been there. Like I said, I was in this marriage for about 8 years, but it already by that time, and it was 4 years before the wedding, the marriage, that the relationship had started, that By the 8th year, it was already a horrible, custody battle, and just total nightmare. My self-esteem that had started out very, very low in the beginning of the relationship had even plummeted to where I just felt completely worthless. So I totally get where you're coming from, anyone who's been in this situation. And you hear that you need to forgive or you need to move on from what happened. You need to take responsibility. I know it sounds very frustrating and angering because people acted wrong. They aren't innocent, right? They've lied to you, they've enabled bad behavior. But the key is when you're able to take responsibility because you did make choices, even if you didn't know better, that same reasoning applies to others. You can just assume they didn't know better also, right? If you didn't know better. But that doesn't mean that you aren't responsible for allowing that relationship. You are. It is your life, and there's no substitute for enforcing your own boundaries. No one else can do that for you, whether you're completely broke, homeless, whatever the situation is, up to millionaire, billionaire status. It's always going to be the same. No one else can take responsibility for enforcing your boundaries. Only you can do that. So when you allow poor treatment in a relationship, and this is, I teach all of this in my Princess Treatment Method, and you should definitely join my group, Limitless Ladies, to learn about the Princess Treatment Method, and keep your eyes out because can have some announcements and some classes that I'm actually going to teach in the group, and you'll be able to see the replay in my group. So I'll go ahead and link that here. It's called Limitless Ladies. So go ahead and join that. But what I was saying is that only you can enforce your boundaries. If you're making the decision to allow poor treatment, you cannot put that on anyone else. There's no one else who can stop that for you. You are the only one that can do that. And it sounds harsh. It's difficult to hear. It can put you feeling defeated and depressed when you first hear this. But ultimately, it's empowering because it means you can change your situation. You can take control of your life. You can change and only allow the best treatment possible, but only if you take responsibility for all your choices, even the ones you didn't think you could have made better. That's okay. Now you know better. Like Oprah says, you know better. When you know better, you can do better. And the same is true for everyone around you, right? Like, so when you change, not everyone around you is going to be changing at the same pace. And you probably are frustrated that they aren't having the same realizations that you're having, but they can change. And that's why you need to always operate in the present moment. And again, this is what I teach with my Princess Treatment Method, is to operate in the present moment. And this is what I do with my family, who was, tolerant and enabling of my first marriage that was extremely toxic and unhealthy. They were there. They allowed it. They went to the wedding. They put up money for it. They gave me gifts, They didn't stop it, right? But they couldn't. There wasn't anything they could do to stop it if I wasn't stopping it. So now I have to live with those people that I have had anger towards, especially parents. You think that they are responsible for your well-being when you're growing up. But at a certain point, you become an adult and you do have to take responsibility and ownership for the choices you make. And here's why. It's not the reason you have to do that is not because they didn't have a part in it or they weren't they didn't do things wrong and make mistakes. They did. But the reason you have to take responsibility for it is because it is your life, and you are going to live and pay the consequences of those choices, regardless of what the influencing factors are. So it's only by taking responsibility completely, 100% for all of your choices, that you can finally move on and change your situation. But like I said, when you're trying to live with these people, especially parents who you are disappointed, you feel completely let down and exposed and unsafe because they allowed you to be in this toxic relationship, you have to deal with them in the present. And I don't mean that to let anyone off the hook. What that means is you're being emotionally current. If you've ever heard like the most dysfunctional arguments and fights, and they'll be sort of a meme or a cliche in movies and TV shows, is there's an argument between a husband and wife, and they're talking about sticky jelly left on the counter, and then it goes quickly to, you always do this, you never do this. So anytime somebody's bringing up the past into a current situation and blaming someone for everything that's gone wrong, and they've done all these things, and you're bringing up these past hurts, you immediately lose credibility, right? Doesn't that sound just so ridiculous when people start blaming and arguing over jelly on the counter? And this is why I'm telling you to stay current, because, like I said, number one, people do change, so you don't want to be making faulty assumptions that don't apply anymore. And if you are living in the past and bringing up the past, you're going to lose credibility. So people aren't going to respect your positions and your boundaries. If you've lived in the past with really poor treatment, and like this poster had said, and in this question I get all the time, is that I would tell this partner, this toxic spouse, what I didn't want, and then they would go against it, and I would, things I said I didn't want to do, I would end up doing. So you've kind of proven yourself a liar, basically, right, in that situation. You've proven that you're going to say one thing and do another, right? So you don't want people holding that against you in the present. You want to keep things focused on what's going on now. And whatever I said in the past, I can't change it. But what's happening right now, these are my boundaries, I'm going to stick to them, right? So you want people to be in the present moment with you. So then you need to make sure that you stay in the present moment also, and don't bring up, you always do this, you never do that, you weren't there for me, those kind of things from the past. Stay in the present. Judge people by their actions in the present. And I don't mean judge in the sense of condemning or hating or being angry, but judging in terms of whether you want to keep exposing yourself to them, or if you want to keep exposing yourself to them in that particular way. So like if you have a family member who in present day, forget whatever you think they're responsible for in your past relationship. But in the present day, if you think they are, not treating you fairly, they're violating your boundaries that you put out there, I said I won't do this, and then they went ahead and did it anyway, then what I mean by judge is to not expose yourself to that same situation. That's how you defend your boundaries, is by not continuing to expose yourself to those situations. That doesn't mean you cut them off completely. That doesn't mean you don't relate to them in other ways. It just means you don't keep stepping up to have the same bad results, the same results you didn't want. If you keep going back for more, then isn't that sending a message that you do want it? Isn't that sending a message that you don't mean it when you say you don't want to participate? Stop participating, right? So that's kind of what we mean when we say take responsibility, is if you don't want a certain outcome, if you don't want to participate in a certain situation, then take yourself out of that situation. So I hope that's making sense. Please let me know if you have any questions in the comments. And like I said, join me in my group for more announcements and more good stuff coming up, because we need to talk about what your plan is for next year. 2020 is coming up so quickly. What happened in 2019 that you want to change and correct and up level? If you've had a toxic relationship in your past, if you've had difficulty relating with your family members, and you want to move on and you want to be above all of that and you want to have big goals and make art from your past life, that you're shedding that old skin, then let's talk about how you're going to achieve that. So I've got some really good stuff coming up with the Princess Treatment Method, and I'll be talking both to single women, if you're ready to get married, if you're ready to get committed in a relationship in 2020, then let's start laying the groundwork and making that happen now. So yeah, so I'll see you in the group, and I'll have lots more announcements for you soon. And as always, feel free to book a free session for me so we can meet and chat and connect. So I hope you all have a wonderful week, and thank you so much for watching. Bye-bye.